Hello there. Have you ever heard of a Nuzlocke? Of course you have. Who hasn't? What do you mean you haven't? A Nuzlocke is a Pokemon run where the base premise is, if your Pokemon faint, they're considered dead, and you can never use them again. Also, you can only catch the first Pokemon you find on a route, and you gotta nickname them so you truly feel emotional damage when they inevitably die. Yes, we're all familiar with that, but what about Soul Link Nuzlockes? But you haven't heard of that one yet, have you?
Yes, we have. We saw Jaden's video.
Put it simply, a Soul Link is a two-player Nuzlocke where you and your partner do the run together, but the souls of each Pokemon are linked with each other. For example, if we both catch a Pokemon on Route 1, their souls are tied together. If one dies, the other dies too. In addition, we can only use one of each primary type on both teams. So if I catch a Pokemon whose primary type is water, my partner can't use a primary water type unless I switch out. Fairly complicated rules. Recently, I attempted a randomized Soul Link Nuzlocke with my good friend XShirokuuma in Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver. Actually, we attempted it twice, because the first time we got wiped out by Bugsy's Abomasnow. But here's how the second attempt went. We wake up in our beds eager to get the show on the road.
Yeah, whatever, Mom.
We go to Elm's lab to pick out our first Pokemon, and since this entire run was randomized, we had absolutely no idea what we were getting. Shiro ended up with a Tyrogue, Smoochum, and Cradily, and I ended up with a Kricketot, Tyranitar, and Crobat. Very solid choices. We ended up with a Crobat-Cradily duo we named Crodilly and headed out to Mr. Pokemon's house so we can go steal the egg he essentially stole and dump it onto Professor Elm. Mr. Pokemon gives us the egg, and Oak gives us the Pokedex, and on our way back we ended up running into the red-haired fuckboy that would plague us for the rest of the game. We tore through him ridiculously quickly, and in his panic he just casually, drops his student ID.
Did you see my name? Did you? Alright, make sure you memorize it. Have you? Okay, good. No, give it back!
We go back to the lab and tell the police officer who almost arrested us that we saw the thief, and we named him the only thing we reasonably could name him. Chat.
So original.
Our counterparts in each other's games shows us how to catch Pokemon, which we already knew how to do, and the Nuzlocke officially begins. We go into the grass and encounter our very first pair. Shiro finds a goddamn Dragonair, and I find a Smeargle. Ugh, fine. We name it Draggle and head to the next route. We get our next pair, Monferno Makihita, a relatively decent pair. We name them Monhita and make our way through the rest of the route, and the multiple youngsters that carry legendaries on them for whatever reason. The next route is upon us, and we try for our next pair. Shiro gets a Lapras, and I get a Sunkern. Oh, come on! We name them Glace after one of Shiro's viewers and try our luck again in the Dark Cave, and get Eevee Gulpin. We name them after two more of our viewers, into Mechagrim, and immediately box them because normal types. We arrive in Violet City, home of our first gym badge, except we had to get past Sprout Tower first. Now, normally this tower is basically solely Bellsprout from trainers, but here, what do you think we're dealing with? Now that was out of the way, we go to the gym and honestly have no issue defeating Falconer. Professor Elm calls us to let us know he's abandoning his parenting duties and forcing the egg onto us 10-year-olds, so we pick up the egg. We were excited because before they hatched into Pupitar Hypno, a very nice pair. Here, they hatched into Geodude Jigglypuff. Normal type. We head south so we can get into Azalea Town, the area that stopped us in our last run. We caught Glow, a Spoinkulamize. I cried over a Gardevoir teleporting away from me in Ilex Forest. It was the first good Pokemon I found in the wild and it fucking teleported on me. And then we were helping this old guy battle Team Rocket.
Dumbass.
Team Rocket was mutilating Slowpokes down there, so we kinda just tore straight through them. Even Proton was a stomp. Now that we were back where we were when we failed last time, the Azalea Gym. And unfortunately, we didn't get through this unscathed this time either. There's a double battle in the gym you have to fight, and the two twins sent out Vigoroth and more importantly, Hypno. Hypno at this point in the game was strong enough to kill pretty much everything I had. Crodilly wouldn't survive because weakness, Glace wouldn't survive because Sunkern. The only one who would be okay was Glow, who was already in the battle and couldn't be switched. So I ended up losing Monhita to a confusion. This was our first death of the run of Pokemon we actually cared for, so we were ready to avenge them. Well, we tried training up Noopy first, our Skorupi Numel, except Shiro got Noopy killed by a Wooper because he thought Numel could handle it. We got back to the gym to face Bugsy. He was the end of our run before, so we were determined to get through it this time. I got through Bugsy no problem, but our deaths were not over yet. We ended up also losing Draggle as a result, switching out to save Glace and Bugsy's Ludicolo getting a critical hit. We were now farther than we were last time, but not without sacrifices. Now that we could actually proceed, we get through Ilex Forest and go into our next pair that we were able to catch, Roserade Coughing. We named them after our fellow streamer friend Lacey. Check her out, she's cool. Anyway, we couldn't use her yet because poison and grass typing. We get into Goldenrod City to catch up Pichu Lopunny duo in the next route that we named after 2 more of our viewers, Blazy, get A+ on the quiz Whitney was failing, then storm over to a gym so we can whoop her ass, despite her actually having really good Pokemon. On our way to Ecruteak, we catch a really nice pair of Mew and Granbull. Finally, I get a good Pokemon. That doesn't have any good moves yet, but it's a start. We boxed them for the moment because otherwise we'd be boxing 2 of our Pokemon and went to go squirt all over the tree blocking the route. And what do we get? Shiro gets a Farfetch'd, and I get a motherfucking Darkrai. My luck is finally turning around. This is great! We will cast the power of nightmares all over our enemies. Watch them writhe in pain as we banish them to the depths of despair. Watch them choke over their fear as they...
Dead!
We continue on with one of us in high spirits at least, and we head over to all the different areas around Ecruteak so we can potentially get some new team members, even grab the fishing rod so we have more chances. None of them were team members we could use. On our trip to catch Pokemon we could have hopefully used, I get a redemption shot at catching a Gardevoir in Mount Mortar. But not only did Shiro kill his encounter, so I wouldn't have been able to use it anyway, but Blazy died to a critical hit. I was annoyed at my bad luck, Shiro didn't care, and Pichu was ranting the hell out of me in chat. Sorry, buddy. We swapped Mewbowl in and gave Glow a break so we could swap them in, train them up, and challenge Morty, the Ecruteak gym leader. Shiro had a very easy time with the team Morty had for him, while I was not so lucky. He led in with Meditite, which was really easy. Next was Aggron, which shouldn't have been easy, but Glace took him out no issues. And then he sent out Dialga. This was very bad for me because none of my Pokemon had moves that could take it out, and it resisted absolutely everything I had. My best shot was Crobat with confusing it, and it had Ancient Power and Power Gem. Mewbowl could stall it a bit with transforming into it, but it wasn't getting anywhere fast. Mewbowl, Glace, and Crodoli fought the fight of their lives, slowly wearing it down, and then wearing it down again when Morty healed it, and eventually, Dialga went down. We sighed in relief, glad we were able to conquer the Time God when we feared we wouldn't get out of it alive. And then he sent out Raikou. I think it's obvious what happened at this point. I was incredibly torn up. Mewbowl was the first actually good Pokemon I managed to catch that wasn't my starter, and he died in his first serious battle because of my god-awful luck. I grew fond of Glace due to how well it was actually doing in the grand scheme of things, not to mention how much Shiro loved Glace as well. As a Sunkern, it shouldn't have lasted as long as it did, and I respected the hell out of her for it. And Crodoli was our damn starter, the one we relied on for killing and for weakening potential team members, the ones who were by our side since the very beginning. And now they were gone. All because of me. Me and my goddamn luck. Now, what we didn't know is that a Nuzlocke typically ends once you black out, like the trainer died as well along with their Pokemon. We thought it was you go until you couldn't reasonably make any more teams. It's what we did in our last run, where Shiro's team got wiped out, and the only Pokemon we could have used was one Pokemon, and it involved a Ledian. And with how many same-type Pokemon we kept finding this run, something similar was going to happen very quickly anyway. Obviously, these rules differ from person to person so long as you follow the general rules, so it's up for debate. So we lay our Pokemon to rest and continue forth with our new team. Seasops, the Sea King Gardevoir, goddammit Shiro, Teddiursa, the Teddiursa Probopass, and Lacey, our Coughing Roserade. I remember the Rock Smash TM this time and gave it to Teddiursa, which made my revenge genocide of Morty's Pokemon a lot easier. We head to Olivine so we can battle Jasmine. On the way I catch a Kabutops, and Shiro failed to catch the Latias. Remember this for later. Run into chat who tells us the gym leader is a bitch for caring for a sick Pokemon, and we climb the tower so we can go see what the fuck is going on.
Shit!
We eventually reached the top and Jasmine was like,
Now climb all the way down and cross the sea to get some very hyper-specific medicine to cure Amphi because I can't do it myself.
I'm more forgiving because Jasmine. We cross the sea, Shiro understandably fails an Articuno after chucking a crap ton of his balls at it. Meanwhile, I find a Skiploom. How come you keep finding all the good Pokemon? And challenge the Cinnamon Gym. Huh? Oh, my bad. I just got word it's called Cinnawood. Wait, that's worse. When we actually got down to Chuck, I was rather worried because I remember when Jaden fought Chuck and she faced a very terrifying Frostlass who benefited fully from Hail and Ominous Wind, so I was worried that I'd face something similar, especially with my terrible luck against Morty. And actually wasn't that bad for either of us. We deliver the medicine to Jasmine, who accepts our challenge. I get through no problem. On Shiro's side, Lacey fights a very tough battle against her Misdreavus, who is really efficient with status moves, but Lacey pulled through. On our way back to Ekritique, we get a call from the Safari Zone saying the Safari Zone was open. We look at each other, yell, "Fuck yeah!" and dash on over to the Safari Zone, also with the opportunity to catch some new Pokemon. The only pair we were able to actually use is a Lombre Charmander. We name them Fuego and enter the Safari Zone. The way you're supposed to do it is you do one full run of the Safari Zone, and at the end, you pick one Pokemon to keep and release the rest. We just went with the first pair that we were actually able to capture, which also technically works. So we left with a Magneton and Ghastly duo we named Gigi Pudding, based off 2 of our viewers. Except it died very early on because Shiro forgot Ghastly's part poison. We got through Mount Mortar and went north so we can go catch the shiny Pokemon at the Lake of Rage. Keep up my Jaden status in this playthrough due to Shiro finding a Vigoroth and me finding a Delibird. Seriously, what is with this track record? What is with yours? We get to the lake, surf on the surface, and encounter Mr. Mime and Hariyama. Okay, a very interesting pair. Finally, something pretty solid for the both of us. Lance greets us again when we get back to shore, recruits us to go kill some gangsters, refuses to elaborate, and takes off. When we get back to Mahogany Town, Lance straight up kills a guy and goes into the basement of that shop. We shrug, go in, beat up some gangsters, as well as their commanders, one of which very conveniently trained a Murkrow to mimic his exact voice and wander very conveniently to the door that needed his voice and very conveniently said the password into the door with the exact voice needed to open it. Must have been a coincidence. We beat up one more commander and go to take out the Electrode that are powering the system. And since all of them count as static encounters, we were able to catch all 3. First pair was Metapod Nidorina. Yawn. Second pair was Mewtwo Apom. Don't ask me how I successfully caught that Mewtwo, I don't know either. Finally, a really good Pokemon I could use. Motherfucker! Anyway, the last pair we got was Pinsir Gallade, an actually extremely good pair that we could use. We named them Yusha, and we ultimately chose to add Yusha to the team instead of taking out a pair to use 2 Poms. I never got to use that Mewtwo. Oh well. We trained up Yusha and took them to the Mahogany Gym once they were trained up. We got through it very quickly and headed back to Goldenrod to take out Team Rocket once and for all. We tried being extra sneaky, but chat decided to be an ass. We continue plowing through Team Rocket and things were going great. Until I didn't take into account that Charizard at the current level they were at would still know Dragon Rage, and Fuego barely died to it. Fuego wasn't on our team for too long, but he was pulling his weight incredibly well, and Shiro got really attached to his Charizard. You did well, Fuego. Rest now. We put in Ryder, the Raichu Shelter duo we caught in the Team Rocket base, and stormed back to Team Rocket to tear them a new one for killing Fuego. Except, that wasn't even the end of our deaths. In the rematch against Ariana, Shiro got Teddiasa killed by a Regirock superpower. He says it wasn't on purpose, but he's also openly stated he's wanted Teddiasa dead for the longest time because he doesn't like Probopass, so take it with a grain of salt. Teddiasa for me was my saving grace against my rematch with Morty, and was the raw power that carried me through a great number of trainers. Rest in peace, Teddiasa. You can at least attend its funeral, damn it! The pile of Team Rocket grunt bodies might as well have been our bridge to Archer, who was trying to send a message to Giovanni to bring him back. Except we obliterated him pretty easily. The director of the radio tower thanked us and gave us the Rainbow Wing and Silver Wing respectively, and we headed over to Blackthorn. Ryder wasn't doing it for Shiro because Shelter is, well, not strong. Feel my pain! So we ended up switching it out for Iglia, which was his Celio and my Igglybuff. And Igglybuff died during training due to a trainer Doduo's pursuit. Bad luck for running into that aside. I already spent a crap ton of time trying to make the Sunkern work. This was Arceus' way of giving me a break, not having to do that again with Igglybuff. We get through the Ice Cave, again not finding any good encounters, and once we arrive in Blackthorn we get 2 more chances at catching Pokemon. And thankfully, we get 2 new pairs just in time for the 8th gym. Sleepy, the Whalmer Shinx, and Serena, the Metacham Togepi. Named after another VTuber. She started streaming recently, check her out. Anywho, at this point, we actually have a pretty nice team. We get through the gym, no issues, though I do question why everyone and their mother has a Celebi, and we challenge Claire. who also wasn't a problem. Claire was butthurt that we had no casualties from our battle against her and refused to give us the badge, so we very happily traveled to the Dragon Den where we picked up Gabe. We swapped out Serena for Gabe and head back in to talk to the Elder inside the most inconveniently placed shrine I think I've ever seen. Bad enough it's in the middle of a cave surrounded by water, but you also can't have the decency to not put the entrance past a goddamn whirlpool! These old men ask if we beat our Pokemon. We say no. They give a thumbs up. Claire runs in thinking she won. They tell her to hand over the badge. She slumps over in defeat, buys a bucket of ice cream, and cries herself to sleep on the Dragon Den floor. We decide to train up Gabe and head on over to Ecruteak so we can go beat up the woman there. First girl was no issue, although I do question what she was doing with that licky. Second one was a pain in the ass because that Golduck just kept getting lucky. Meanwhile, Shiro was already almost done. But unfortunately, if I thought the Golduck was incredibly lucky with getting confusion with every water pulse and me hating myself at every turn, it wasn't as bad as the final girl, who Zangoose defeated Yusha with a critical hit Crush Claw. How many have I lost to critical hits at this point? Yusha was the heavy bruiser on both of our teams, the hero Pokemon who we were hoping would carry us to the end. Thank you, Yusha. May you rest in peace. As for you... I make that Zangoose suffer slowly and painfully, and the girls set out to the Bell Tower and Royal Islands respectively. We head over to them as well as having deep conversations about love along the way, and we arrive at our destinations. This gives us a chance at 2 new Pokemon. Or so we thought. Turns out I couldn't even get into the Bell Tower where there were Pokemon because I didn't have the Rainbow Wing, so we'd only be able to catch 3 out of the 4 Pokemon. So we instead decided to mix and match. My Royal Islands encounter paired with Shiro's Bell Tower encounter. And if we later decided to do Kanto and get the Rainbow Wing, we could do his Royal Islands encounter with my Bell Tower encounter. So we get a pretty okay pair in Luxio Dragonair. We named it Jomama after another streamer's mother, and before heading down to the legendaries, we decided to switch up the team a little to Lacey, Seasalps, Gabe, and Jomama. And then we decided to train up Jomama and Gabe, as both of them were 20 levels under what they needed to be. And Gabe ended up dying when Shiro thought it could handle a Meganium during training. It's 4 times weak, Shiro! Jomama, on the other hand, was able to catch up, and we put Serena back on the team. So we head to the top of the Bell Tower and the basement of the Royal Islands, watch the girls do their ritual dance, and draw out the absolutely amazing legendary duo of... Caterpie and Spinda. Yep. Normal type. Moving on to Route 27, we're winding down on our potential Pokemon, so we set out on the water. Shiro finds a goddamn Deoxys, and I find a Nosepass. I'll take it. We name it Deodorant, and Shiro gets a kill to a Persian 20 levels under it thanks to Pursuit. You know, I'm sympathetic because I also lost a Pokemon to Pursuit, and Deoxys' defenses may as well be wet paper, but on the other hand, why? Now during our little training session, we actually ended up getting a bit of a surprise. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the shiny claws when it comes to Nuzlocks. Put it simply, if you find a shiny Pokemon in the Nuzlocke, it counts as a bonus Pokemon. You're allowed to catch it and potentially put it on your team. Shiro finds a shiny Nidorina, but since we're doing a Soul Link, there's no real rule there. So I offered the rule that we could pair them up with a soulless Pokemon and then transfer the souls of one pair to this new one, which, given how many sacrifices we had, this was really no issue. Shiro decided not to do so with the Nidorina since we'd have to give up Lacey to include it. And then he finds a shiny Azelf. I've been shiny hunting Regice for 2.5 years with a shiny Charmin sword with no luck, and you find 3 shinies with quadruple the odds without even trying. What the fuck? We did do the soul transfer rule with this one, combining the Azelf with the Kabutops I caught before. We named them Peaches and set out to the Pokemon League to complete our challenge. We'd have 2 more chances at catching Pokemon, Route 26 and Victory Road. And all we found on Route 26 was an Ambipom Porygon. Normal time! Things weren't looking so good. It was looking like we'd only get to challenge the Elite Four with only 4 Pokemon. We entered Victory Road, and I prayed for a good encounter. Something, anything, just to benefit us. And finally, Lord Arceus up above heard our call. We walked into the cave to find Latios and Shaman. Shiro fought a long battle, but was able to catch the Shaman. I threw my Master Ball because I didn't give a fuck and I was not taking my chances. We named it Piwo, although we wouldn't get a chance to use it yet because Jomama and Lacey were still on our team, but do remember this pair. We reach the end of Victory Road and Chat catches up to us to challenge us one last time. He knew of his kill in the Jaden's animation timeline and was confident he could do the same to us. He couldn't. We go into the league, and before we challenge the league, we decide to move our team around a bit. We were stuck between choosing having a team of 4, but we were emotionally connected with every single one, or swapping out Lacey and Jomama, but having a team of 5. We couldn't choose. Until I realized I had the Soul Dew in my bag since items were randomized too, and that sealed it. We shook on it and spent 1 week training everyone up to be ready for the Elite Four. Unfortunately, this did mean we had to box Lacey and Joe Mama. For the record, they're not dead, they're just in the sidelines cheering for the rest of their teammates. Joe Mama wasn't with us too long, but we were already fond of them pulling their weight and doing a lot for the team, especially for Shiro. Lacey has been with us ever since the 4th gym. She was our ace Pokemon the entire way through. She never let us down. Ever. We're proud you can go into retirement and not the death box. Take it easy now, Lacey. As a side note, Lacey, the actual streamer, not the Pokemon, predicted she would die if she was ever taken out of the box. Take that, Lacey. We returned a week later with our team fully ready. Piwo, the Latios Shaman, Sleepy, the Wailord Luxray, Serena, the Metacham Togetic, Peaches, the Kabutops Shiny Azelf, and Mechagrim, the Swallow Umbreon. Mechagrim was biding their time deep in the PC since we caught them in Dark Cave all those weeks ago, waiting for their chance to shine. And this was it. Now that we actually got the space for them, we took a deep breath and headed in. Will was rather easy for me, as I used a nasty plot sweep with Piwo. The Poochyena on Shiro's side gave Shiro a tiny bit of a hard time, but it was very easy for him too. Koga was also incredibly easy and didn't give either of us a hard time. After some comments about Shiro wanting to see sweaty hot naked men, we move on to the next Elite Four, Bruno. For me, he starts with Weepinbell, but for Shiro, he starts with Entei. After Shiro made Piwo his starting Pokemon due to chat's request. He was already not fond of Shaman due to its lackluster moves, and this certainly didn't help. I got through Bruno relatively easily, but Shiro has a little bit of a tougher time when Entei was turning into a pretty heavy hitter. But with a team effort, Entei did eventually go down with no casualties. What, are you expecting me to pull a Morty and tell you he got another legendary that wiped him out? Well, too bad, the rest of Bruno's team got obliterated by Shiro's team. Moving on to Karen. She had a few pretty intimidating Pokemon. Piwo lost even more brownie points with Shiro after an Ice-type natural gift didn't kill the Latios, but nevertheless, we got through her no deaths. And finally, we were at the champion. We walked into the hall, and Lance was sitting there, waiting for us. Our final challenge. We looked at each other, nodded, and we all sent out our Pokemon. We lead in with Serena against his Forretress and Zangoose. They both give us a hard time, with Forretress constantly buffing his defense, with Metacham just hitting it over and over again. Even my backup option and a high jump kick not doing that much after the second Iron Defense. Zangoose was just wearing down Togetic, and it wasn't doing enough to compensate. Eventually though, we get them both to go down. Next up is Mantine Gualrain, which we got to go down no issues. I have no problems with the Elekid. Sleepy almost dies on Shiro's side thanks to a Phampi, but Sleepy pulled through in the end. And Shiro wipes through most of his other Pokemon just fine. On my end, Sleepy takes out his Armaldo, and Serena took out his Sneasel. On Shiro's end, his semi-final Pokemon is a Salamence. That also surprisingly wasn't an issue. And Shiro took out his last Pokemon Hoppip with no worries. With his victory assured, it was just up to me, and I was at his last Pokemon. Lance throws his Pokeball, revealing his final Pokemon, a Ditto. I had a plan. I sent out Mechagrim, Ditto transforms into Swalot, and then I swapped Mechagrim out for Piwo, a Psychic type to his now permanent Poison type. It was an impeccable strategy, but Lance, well, he just had to make it difficult. I gave Mechagrim Amnesia since, you know, he's supposed to be a tank, and Lance just kept having him spam Amnesia, and then full restoring him. It's like Matty Burrito said all those years ago.
You don't get to be champion of the Pokemon League without knowing how to spam full restores!
Wise words. As much as I hate them now. But it didn't matter how much he had spammed Amnesia, because there was one thing he didn't account for. I had Nasty Plot. In a matter of time, those Amnesias would be useless. And in the end, Ditto fell. We did it. We won the Pokemon League, and we had no casualties either. Even with our intense prep work, they didn't make things easy for us. But these Pokemon that we worked so hard to train up, they pulled through for us. As we registered our Pokemon in the Hall of Fame, we couldn't help but smile. That we did it. The Pokemon that fought through the Elite Four, the Pokemon in retirement after fighting so hard for us, the Pokemon that gave their lives to aid us in our journey. Even after our first defeat in the other timeline, here we are, our second run. And even with a lot of bumps along the way, and an absolutely insane amount of bullshit on both of our ends, mostly mine, here we stand as victors. We found and raised some really amazing Pokemon this run, haven't we? Thank you again, Shiro, for going on this incredibly fun journey with me. I had a lot of fun, and in a literal way of speaking, since it's a Soul Link, I couldn't have done it without you. And now we can all rest easily, knowing we conquered the Pokemon Heartgold and Soulsilver Randomized Soul Link Nuzlocke. So that was that adventure. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was a lot of fun for me to make, as much as it was grueling, but I don't know, I enjoyed myself. I hope Shiro enjoyed himself too. Check him out when you can, I put his Twitch in the description. But with that, Green is Merle here, and I will see you in whatever video I make next. Ciao for now!
Da